This chapter is chapter 20, and it is titled Herkimer. Herkimer. Hurry, said Punky. Play ball. It was his second Saturday to go to the athletic field to train for Special Olympics. I can't hurry any faster, replied Aunt Queenie, unless you want your eggs raw. Clock! Well, I declare, Aunt Queenie pointed the spatula at Uncle Bert and said, 2 weeks ago, I couldn't blast him out of bed. Today, we overslept by 15 minutes, and he's like a hat on a hot tin roof. That's what a job and a few bucks will do for you, isn't it, Punk Man? Uncle Bert laughed. Yeah, buddy, said Punky, lifting Uncle Bert's toupee and kissing him on the head. Hey, leave my hair alone, fat boy. You're a fat boy, you old goat, Punky replied as he plopped the toupee back in place. He gathered up his jacket, his lunchbox, and his cowboy hat and set them by the door. Then he tapped Aunt Queenie on the shoulder and repeated, Clock! Well, I declare, said Aunt Queenie, handing him his red plastic plate. I sipped my orange juice and studied my aunt. I couldn't get used to seeing her in a sweatshirt and blue jeans, and I'd been totally surprised the night before when she wrote out that check. Del Rita, she said, why don't you come with us today? No, thanks. Come on, come with us. You hole up in your room so much, you're turning into a mole. How could I tell her that I liked being a mole? I was snug and safe in my room, and I enjoyed working on Herkimer. The world around me had shifted crazily, like ashes in the wind, but the little swan gave me a sense of control. You'd get a kick out of watching Punky, Uncle Bert said. Running isn't his style, but he can throw a mean basketball. Come on, DJ. Please come, said Punky. His eyes were bright with excitement, and he had egg around his mouth. Well, all right, I said, tousling his hair. Hey, Wasco, leave my hair alone. Oh, I forgot. You gotta look nice for Susie. Yeah, Susie, my girl. The athletic field resembled an anthill with all the ants running around in red sweatshirts. Punky jumped out of the car and hustled across the field, dragging Uncle Bert with him. Want a hug with me? Asked Aunt Queenie. I'm assigned to the track. I think I'll watch Punky. Suit yourself. Punky was clowning around with Barney near the basketball goal. When he spied me, he punched Barney on the arm and pointed at me saying, My girl, my wife, my girl, dummy. You're the dummy, said Barney, and the two collapsed in a fit of giggles. The whistle blew and Boss yelled, Fall in line for the free throw. When Punky's turn came, Uncle Bert boomed, Hit it, Punk Man. Punky flashed him thumbs up sign. He took his own sweet time, bouncing the ball, testing it, clutching it to his chest to ponder his arm. He was hamming it up, and his eyes gleamed with the joy of it. When at last he flung the ball in a graceful arch and sank it without touching the rim, the audience cheered. My friend, said Barney, slapping him on the back. Punky clasped his hands over his head like a champion, then pranced over to Uncle Bert. Give me 5. Good job, Punk Man, said Uncle Bert, shaking Punky's hand and hugging him at the same time. I squeezed into their huddle, feeling a little glow of warmth for Punky. See that, DJ? Sure did. You're pretty good. Pretty good, echoed Uncle Bert. He's better than a Harlem Globetrotter. Barney also sank a basket, and the crowd cheered as they had Punky. Connie was the next player, but she missed the basket by a good 2 feet. Her teammates clapped her on the back anyway, saying, "Nice try." "Yeah," said Connie. "Nice try." I noticed Frankie alone on the sidelines, watching the free throws from his wheelchair, and I drifted over and spoke to him. "I know you," he said in a squeaky voice. "Yes, I came to the workshop with Punky. Punky's nice. He gave me a present." "Oh? What was it?" "A clown," replied Frankie. Slowly he reached a twisted hand into his pocket and dug out one of the clowns I'd carved. "Del Rita Velveeta," said someone behind me, and I knew immediately it was Tree. "Glad to see you could make it." His cheeks were rosy from the cool air, and the red of his jacket made his mop top orange. "Hi, Frankie. What you got there?" he asked, kneeling beside the wheelchair. "A clown," said Frankie, handing it to him. "Hey, that's neat. Hand carved." "Punky gave it to me," Frankie said. Tree looked at me questioningly. "Does your Uncle Bert carve? He's good." "Uncle Bert didn't do it. I did." "You did? Wow! What else have you carved?" "More clowns, animals. I'm working on a swan." "Does Avenel know you do that?" I shook my head and stared at my tennis shoes. "No. She got mad before I had a chance to tell her." "Girls," snorted Tree, as if it were a dirty word. He gave the clown back to Frankie, took my arm, and led me to the bleachers. I sat down, still tingling from where his hand had touched my arm. For some reason, it was suddenly too warm, and I shrugged out of my jacket. "You've got to understand something about Avenel," Tree said, straddling a bleacher. "She's got a couple of real bad hang-ups about us being on welfare and about Dad. She's not like me. I just go with the flow. She thought it was the end of the world, being embarrassed in front of all those airheaded girls. I didn't deliberately show them the letter. It slipped out of the book, and they grabbed it. I figured it had to be something like that. I told Avenel that Bertie let the cat out of the bag about Dad a long time ago. And she didn't believe me. She thinks I'm holding up for you because I like you." I felt the heat rise to my face. Was Tree trying to tell me he liked me, or did he mean that Avenel thought he liked me? Tree laughed and chucked me under the chin. "Cheer up. Avenel's hard-headed, but she won't stay mad forever." After Uncle Bert and Aunt Queenie went to bed, I stayed in the family room using an encyclopedia to write a science report on frogs. At around 11, I turned off the lights and went down the hall. Punky was curled up in bed, sound asleep and snoring up a storm. His lunchbox was hidden under the covers, and when I went over to switch off the TV set, I saw horned bones behind it. In the bathroom, with Walt Swan as my guide, I began to work on Herkimer. My thoughts drifted away to Tree and Frankie at the athletic field. Tree was so big and healthy, and Frank was so small and frail. I was glad Punky had given him the clown. Slowly, the idea came to me of giving Herkimer to Avenel. He could be my peace offering. I was so intent on my work, I didn't notice Aunt Queenie had come to the doorway. "Del Rita?" she said, and I nearly fell off the toilet seat. "Oh, you're carving. I thought you might be sick." She looked younger in her nightgown, with her hair loose and no makeup. As she moved toward me, wood shavings clung to her fuzzy slippers. "I'll clean up the mess," I said quickly. Aunt Queenie tossed a stray lock of hair over her shoulder and said, "What are you making?" She turned my swan over and over in her hands before holding him up to waltz. In comparison, Herkimer looked horribly imperfect, and I blurted out, That one came from Silver Dollar City. Ah, yes. Whitlam Walt, the master wood carver. Aunt Queenie handed Herkimer back and studied my face. You've got the makings of a master in you, she said. But why are you hiding in the bathroom in the middle of the night? Privacy, I guess. And it's easy to sweep up the shavings. Well, I declare. From now on, young lady, you can carve in the family room. Bert has an old tarp we laid down to protect the carpet. We can't have you hiding your light under a bushel. Tears came to my eyes as I looked up at her, unable to speak. Placing a hand on my shoulder, Aunt Queenie said gently, Your swan reminds me of Punky. They both started out with the basic ingredients, but it took a special touch for them to spread their wings and fly. Punky sat in front of the TV breaking some crayons, while I sat cross-legged on the tarp, putting the finishing touches on Herkimer. I smiled to myself. Less than a week before, I'd never have dreamed of whittling in Aunt Queenie's favorite room. For 6 nights, I'd been poring over Herkimer in the family room, and I felt a little shiver of delight at knowing he was the best piece I'd ever done. The pole lamp behind me cast just the right light, and as I brushed the little swan with a coat of walnut stain, I imagined I saw a smile in his wooden eye. He wasn't perfect by a long shot, but still there was good detail in the feathers of his outstretched wings. His neck was graceful, not much bigger around than a matchstick, and best of all, not broken. I knew Dad would have been proud of me. I only hoped that Herkimer would break the ice with Avenel so we could be friends again. Aunt Queenie came in from the dining room and stood beside me. Del Rita, that's lovely, she said, bending down for a closer look. Bert, she called over my shoulder, come see this. Uncle Bert came in carrying his rolled-up newspaper, thumping it against his leg, and he teased, You're turning into quite a little chiseler. Not wanting to be left out, Punky got up and joined us, saying, Pretty bird. I looked up, feeling proud but bashful at their admiring faces. Uncle Bert helped me fold up the tarp and put away my things. You've got real talent, hon, he said softly. Wish your mom and dad could see. Me too. I carried the little swan to my room, set him on the dresser, then got ready for bed. Before turning out the light, I blew a kiss on the God's eye and Herkimer and prayed that Avenel would understand how much of me had gone into the gift. Herkimer was missing when I awoke, and in his place was a handful of broken crayons. Punky! I dashed through the house, but everyone had already gone to the athletic field. I threw on some clothes and sneakers without socks and grabbed my jacket. Brushing my hair on the run, I jogged across town to the athletic field. Punky was in line to shoot baskets, and when he saw me, he grinned and called, Hi, pretty girl. Play ball? Not now, I said, panting. Where's your lunchbox? Susie, he replied, pointing in the general direction. I ran off, shading my eyes as I scanned the runners on the track. The big red bows in Susie's blonde hair singled her out from the other runners, and I dashed to the finish line to catch her. Boss and Aunt Queenie were cheering everybody, but I kept my eyes on Susie. A few yards from the home stretch, she stumbled and fell, raking her palms across the cinders. Boss ran and helped her up, but when she looked at her bloody hands, she burst into tears. I'm going to heaven, Boss. I'm going to heaven. No, you'll be fine. Oh, I'm going to heaven, she wailed at the sky. Susie, shouted Boss, you're going to heaven, but not today. Not today? Not today? The tears stopped, as if by magic, and Boss And Boss guided Susie to a bench where there was a first aid kit and began to clean her wounds. When he was finished, Susie stood up and headed straight for Frankie, who was sitting in the sidelines in his wheelchair, guarding Punky's lunchbox in his lap. Susie reached into the lunchbox, picked up Herkimer, and said, "Look, Frankie, see my pretty bird? Punky gave him to me. I like Punky. He's my boyfriend." My heart sank. Herkimer was just as gone as if he'd soared over the rooftop.